All right, so we are recording. All right, so welcome to our live webinar series, How Can I Help You Right Now? And today we'll be talking about how we can scale recruitment with AI technology. Now, AI is not a new concept to the recruiting world. I know quite a few companies that are in the space developing technology specifically for recruitment. So today I want to take a different lens and a different approach to that and to really share with smaller companies and even mid-sized companies as well, how we can truly scale a recruitment with AI technology. So in our session today, we're going to be talking about some of the tools I've come across and used personally that you can also use to scale your recruitment. And we'll talk about, how technology actually partners with recruitment effectively and looking at that under the lens of a post-COVID-19 situation. So just a quick who am I? So for those of you who have not been on one of these series with me before, or this is our first interaction, my name is Aldeen Simmonds-Thorpe. I'm a transformation business coach. I've worked for over a decade in HR and operations and strategy, supporting startups, scale-ups, and small to medium-sized businesses. I've earned the title as trusted advisor for many business owners as a result of my ability to combine strategy, planning, and action to create real results. And that's something I'm really passionate about. I love talking about the technology. I love talking about the strategy, but I also love to focus on actually getting real results, not just the fluff, but getting stuff that actually translates into real business results. So today, just to kind of give us a high level of what we'll be covering, I want to look at, recruiting post-pandemic. So what are some of the trends that are starting to emerge as we move past are on the trend to move past COVID-19 and this pandemic's impact on our businesses and on our economy. Then I want to talk about what scaling recruitment could look like for your business. So we talk a lot about, what recruitment is, and everybody on this call, just from the profiles that I've seen, are very comfortable with the concept of recruitment. But when we look at scaling it for our business, how are we tying in what our business actually needs with some of the new trends and technology that is out there for our businesses. And then we talk specifically again about the technology. So AI technology that scales. What are some of the tools I've come across? I'm going to share some of those with you, about 6 of them, that can really help you scale your recruiting efforts in a very practical way. And then finally, talking about how you redesign your recruitment process with tech and processes that work. So it's always good to talk about really nice, fancy recruitment processes and, employing tech. But we also want to be mindful that if it doesn't work, right, it really won't help us accomplish what we want or to get those real results like we talked about before. So I want to dive right in. So I know there's so many trends in HR, specifically in the recruitment space. So what's really changing in recruitment? And I've kind of summarized a couple of the trends that I've noticed, and even the ones that a couple of colleagues have shared with me as well. So the first one is retention-focused hiring. Now, gone are the days, well, hopefully we're moving past the days where we're only hiring for the right now. If you want to be a part of the business of the future, you really want to have a very forward-thinking approach to your hiring process or to your hiring strategy. So looking at the skills that people need today, but also for skills that will help them in the future. As your business grows, as things improve, as changes happen, what skills do you already have? We talk about your skills inventory in the business. What skills will you be able to leverage that you already have there? So as opposed to hiring on demand for skills as business needs change, how can you retain those top talents that you've already spent so much money to bring in? By looking at what you need today and tomorrow and hiring that in one person. Looking at developing an agile workforce. Now, as an agile HR practitioner, I believe it's very important for us to look at how we can leverage, agile methodology in workforce planning. So looking at leveraging talent as needed and on demand. And for quite a few businesses, that's a difficult concept to grasp. A lot of people believe that our workforce structure and the way our workforce is designed is really specific to having, a body in a seat and performing a specific task consistently, whether it's on contract or full time. But with an agile workforce, you know, with what's happening right now, working from home, teleworking, you know, online working, really taking a digital spin on what a workforce means, you know, being able to leverage talent as needed and on demand will continue to be a trend impacting our workforces. You know, engagement and all that other stuff will be a totally different conversation, but, you know, looking at how we can develop and transform our workforce from an agile perspective. The next thing I've noticed is, you know, people are asking for a transparent hiring process. Gone are the days when, you know, people just think you pick up a phone and you get a job. You know, now we're looking at how can we, you know, ensure that the right people are coming into the pipeline, and how can we ensure that through our conversations, through our interactions, people are very clear on what to expect and when to expect it. The other trend is candidate engagement. So not just at the point of engaging the candidate to come in for an interview, but looking at engaging them throughout the entire process. So from passive job seeker to active person interviewing in front of your, you know, CEO or C-level execs, looking at how we can leverage multi-channel approaches. So things like social media, you know, looking at developing company communities and increasing the communication and cycle of communication with candidates to keep them engaged before they even apply and long after they've probably moved out of the active recruitment process. Looking at talent intelligence. So I'm a huge fan of data and continuous improvement. And so I always ask, you know, whenever I work with a client and they talk about how, you know, hard it is to hire and how expensive it is to hire, I try to zero in on what are their analytics telling them. You know, what's the data saying? Are they actually collecting any? And once they've collected some, what is it actually saying? So we look at collecting and leveraging talent insights to drive CI, which is continuous improvement. So really looking at, you know, what are we currently doing, and what is our current process telling us about how well we're doing what we're doing. And then finally, a trend that I think will continue to evolve, as well as to shape, you know, candidate experience and employers' ability to land top talent, is a life cycle employer branding. So not just looking at branding on the front end of the experience, but branding throughout the entire employee life cycle, right? So how do we create brand ambassadors within our organizations and brand advocates, whether they are employees or non-employees, you know, really looking at how we can increase the number of them as well as that experience through our employer branding. And, you know, things like values, you know, things about the company culture, all those different elements come right into this. And it's nicely kitted up into what we call life cycle employer branding. So those are just some of the key trends that I've noticed over the last few years, and also moving post-COVID, as we look at, you know, people are now getting an opportunity to think about the jobs that they've been in, to really think about where they are as employees and what they're doing. Now they're getting an opportunity to evaluate if the job they were in is the right job. If you're leveraging some of these trends to your advantage, you may be able to continue to retain people, or if you're looking to attract, you might be right in time to attract some of those top talent. And I like to work with data and stats like we talked about before. So when we look at the results, 53% of employers agree that workforce development is a key differentiator in their company's growth and bottom line results. And while 53% of them agree that workforce development is important, a lot of them don't even start at the beginning when we look at bringing talent in, because we all know we develop what we have already, or we look to bring in to assist or to, you know, continue to develop that talent we have in-house. So if we're agreeing that, you know, that is a key differentiator, the question I have is, what are we tangibly doing to achieve that? And then 75% of high potential employees are more likely to succeed in senior roles. Why is that important? Who's a high potential employee? You know, when we look at hypo, as we call them here in HR, hypo employees, you know, we look at what kind of talent are you attracting? You know, where do they stand on a candidate scale? And we look at if they're, you know, ranked or tagged as a hypo employee, how are we fast tracking those people into, you know, broader roles, into more strategic roles, and really having the company leverage those employees and really, maximize the potential within the organization. So if they're more likely to succeed in senior roles, when we think of our workforce design, how are we enabling them to get into those senior roles? And it all starts, again, at the beginning when we attract them, right? If you're playing a short-term game, you bring an employee in and think of their first year. If you're really playing the long-term game, as you bring employees in, you're really looking at, having them stay with you, for another 3 to 5, 5 to 7 years in your company. And so as you think of the HIFO concept, having those people pegged and really set up to move into senior roles is very important, because what that means is that you're now driving a higher ROI on your investment in the first place to attract and retain them. So we want to talk about now scaling recruitment for your business. And I really like this quote: talent strategy is business strategy. Quite often I have conversations with business owners and they talk so much about their business and what they're doing with their business, but very few times do they actually talk about how they're bringing people into the business and how their talent strategy is part of their business strategy. So if you have a stakeholder who has failed to communicate, a talent strategy, as a talent partner or as a talent acquisition specialist, or even as a third-party recruiter, as a service or support to this business, how are you, raising the concern about talent strategy impacting their overall business strategy? How are you bringing that to their attention, and how are you leveraging that, as an opportunity for you to also bring more value to the table by also talking about some of the trends we mentioned before, but even so, shaping what your recruitment process looks like. So I like this quote from Jim Collins. It says, "Great vision without great people is irrelevant." And if we want to plug that into the quote at the top, great business strategy without great talent strategy is irrelevant, right? So we want to look at how we can actually scale recruitment so you can scale your business. And the first thing, of course, if you haven't guessed it, is to actually create a talent strategy, right? Are you clear on what talent you need to achieve your business goals? And what is your talent strategy, right? If you're not sure on how your talent is, going to be helping you to achieve your business goals, you probably need to pause and really reflect on where your business is going, what you need to get you there, and the types of people that you're going to need to succeed in that area. The second piece is to move from a JD, so job description, to skills and competence. I mean, I can't tell you how many really bad job descriptions I've come across, and also, the effort that goes into some of these bad job descriptions. But as we move rapidly in a time of uncertainty and in an environment of constant change, job descriptions fast become irrelevant. However, skills and competencies don't, right? Skills and competencies can be moved around, retrained, redeployed across the organization. So if we move towards assessing skills and competence for tasks and activities that we need to have done, as opposed to copious amounts of time, focused on a job description, we are losing, right? So we want to move away from the job description and really think about the skills and competencies that we need. And when we talk about diversity in hiring and inclusion, it really makes it easier to have that conversation when the conversation is based purely on skills and competence, right? So are your job descriptions still guiding your recruiting, or your business needs driving talent decisions, right? So focusing on the data is the third thing when I think about scaling recruitment that I'd like to touch on. How much are you losing by investing in poor recruitment practices? And this is a question that gets asked all the time, and very, very few times is there ever an answer that comes back. So if you are not assessing, if you're not tracking what you're doing in your recruitment process, it's very hard to scale it, because quite frankly, you don't know what's happening in your recruitment process. Until you've started to analyze what's happening in your recruitment process and with your recruitment practices, then you'll be able to determine, is this, a poor process? Is it an effective process? And then we can actually look at what the data is telling us. So if you are noticing people falling off after the first interview or second interview, people losing interest, there's probably something happening between the time you engage them to that point. So it would be really good to probably conduct some interviews, right? Ask your candidates some questions about why they're dropping out or why they're losing interest. Look at, indicators like reviews that you've got. Look at what your employees are saying about your company. What kind of data can you gather that will give you insight as to whether your recruitment process and practices are being effective? And then really look at what you can do to improve that so you can actually scale it. So now I get to the part that I really enjoy talking about, and that's the AI technology that scales. Technology 10x's our process, so it increases it. It does not change it. And in my experience, having conversations with business owners and business leaders, they always look at technology as becoming the process. But as we have gone through our process today and through our conversation, as we look at what what really exists, if your process is broken, if your process doesn't work, if your process isn't effective, technology isn't going to make it necessarily more effective. It's going to make you potentially do the bad thing faster, right? Or more of the bad thing. So when we think about, really scaling recruitment, it starts with the talent strategy and the process and practices that are going to be effective to actually transition that strategy into actionable activities and practices, right? When we look at adding technology, such as AI technology, to scale that, we really want to look at the quality of our process first, and then look at adding, tools like AI to continue to develop that process and to make it work quicker, faster, more effective. So I want to share a couple of the pieces of technology that I've come across that can really help us scale recruitment if our recruitment processes are done properly. So the first one is actually called MyInterview, which I think is really cute. And it uses AI and machine learning to understand key aspects of candidate answers, such as their professionalism and reasoning. So this tool is able to really dive into that conversational aspect of the interview and evaluate key performance indicators. So things like, their professionalism, their ability to reason, their ability to build connection. It will be looking for clues and connections there that will help before you even talk to that person to gauge where they are. This other one is called Thor, and it's a recruiting and HR chatbot that uses AI to screen candidates, schedule interviews, and answer questions over text messages. So when we talk about automating our process, this tool does almost the same thing that a CRM would do for sales. So it's able to actually engage your candidates through a chatbot throughout the entire process. And it can do that through a variety of tools, including WhatsApp, email, through your careers page. So lots of ways for you to integrate this. And when we talk about the analytics and the data that comes back, this is a great way for you to pull all that data into one spot so that you can actually see what channels candidates prefer to be engaged on. The next one is called Pymetrics, and it allows companies to use AI to vet potential employees using a series of video game-like tests. So when we think about candidate testing, I'm very familiar with some of the very popular ones like Connexa and so on, but being able to gamify tests that really help people show their personality is a great way for you to really see the type of talent you're bringing into your organization. When we talk about company fit, I don't like to talk about fit. I like to talk about company ad. So from a personality standpoint, when you look at things like, team dynamics, building high-performing teams, these types of tests and analytics are a great way to kind of indicate what that person would do. What's interesting about Pymetrics is that they will gauge your current employees. So they will do that for your team. And then through that benchmark, you're able to now evaluate other incumbents against what your current team is performing at, or the level they're performing to. So it's not quite blind. It does allow you to benchmark, and you can determine if that's what you want to use, or if you want to work with your HR team or your hiring manager to create an alternate requirement as well. The next one I want to touch on is Enounciate, and it's an AI used to evaluate candidate language proficiency in under 30 minutes in over 6 languages. So if you're a bilingual recruiter, or you are a a company that does a lot of recruiting with various languages, or you have customers that require language proficiency, you require employees to have bilingual proficiency. This is a great tool for you to leverage as a recruiter, because you don't actually have to speak the language, right? You're able to evaluate the candidate's language proficiency in under 30 minutes, and they're able to be tested based on their ability to speak, vocabulary, and grammar. So very quickly, you're able to determine if your bilingual candidate is superior to another candidate there as well. The other one that I like is Hiretual. So they find and engage the right applicants by aggregating people data from across the web to find a short list of top talent. So if you are familiar with the concept of Internet of Things, so IoT, or any kind of aggregating software or tools, this is a great tool for you to use to really pull top talent, and it will look at places. It will pretty much crawl social media, including your LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So if you're trying to find a specific type of talent, whether globally or within, somewhere like Toronto or even, Florida, you're able to really narrow down your search. You can be as specific as you like or as broad as you like, and they'll be able to aggregate people from that data. So when you talk about engaging passive candidates, this is a great way to do that. And then the final one I want to touch on is Olivia or Paradox. So this one, I believe, was also designed by a female, which is part of why it's called Olivia. And this machine learning tool actually interacts with candidates through a chatbot to answer key questions about their hiring process, about your hiring process, sorry. So as we talked about, redesigning and rethinking what hiring means and candidate experience, leveraging a tool like Olivia, which is similar to one that we touched on before, you're actually able to answer those questions, but not using up physical resources such as a person or your recruiter or hiring manager. So you're actually able to tell them a little bit about the hiring process, what to expect, what's going to happen next, and not really lose out on that candidate engagement and experience. So just to kind of do a quick recap again, the MyInterview one that we've got, Zor, Pymetrics, and then Enounciate, Hiretual, and Olivia or Paradox. And I'm going to be sharing the links to these post conversation. So if you would like to book a demo or to check out these tools to leverage them for yourself as well, I'd highly encourage you to look at how you can do it. And the great thing about these tools is that they're scalable, right? Whether you're hiring 2 people, 10 people, 500 people, again, going back to the process, if you've got a great process down, if you've got, components that work really well, you're really able to replicate that process and 10x it with AI technology, because AI is adaptive as well. So as information comes in, it's able to feed that back to you. And in some cases, depending on the tool, able to real-time adapt to the needs of the candidate. So really a great way, whether you're a small outfit or you're a larger outfit, I like to share with people that, you take the learnings of the enterprise level and you adapt them for your small business. So great way for you to refine a process that works in your business or situation and really 10x it by adding technology like AI to really level it up and to replicate that process many, many, many times. So let's talk about redesigning your recruitment with tech and processes that work. So as we talked about, talent strategy is your business strategy. Redesigning your recruitment with tech and processes that work is really strategy in action. So some of the tips I would like to share about redesigning your recruitment process, whether you're in-house or you are third party, is really starting with the end in mind. What type of talent do you or will you need? We talk about looking at hiring skills, not just for now, but also for later. What types of talent do you really need? And I also want you to think about talent, not just as an employee, full-time, part-time, but really the different types of talent that have started to emerge. So you have people that are now contractors, consultants, you've got freelance workers, you've got contingent workers, all these different types of titles of talent. When you look at where you're going in the end, what do you need right now? And how can you leverage that over your short to medium term to meet your goals? What will you need? And what are the best ways to find and attract them? So going back to some of the tools that we mentioned before, some of them can actually help you find the right talent, right? If you're working on a time limited project that requires an AI developer or, someone of a very unique skill set, sometimes, that might be a freelancer or a contractor that you need, or it could be a company that you engage on a contractual basis that provides services on demand. So really looking at how another talent trend, leveraging talent on demand, how can you actually find the best type of talent, the best format or type of that talent, and really attract them as well. The second piece is process first, technology second. So we talked about this a little bit earlier where we talked about, really being clear on what your process needs to be and how you want to have it function efficiently. And once you've narrowed that down, the technology really is secondary. It almost solves the problem itself. You become more competent and confident in the technology you select once you know exactly what you want your process to do. And then finally, experience is everything. So I joke a lot with my marketing and HR colleagues that HR and marketing are really two sides of the same coin. So when you think about, customer experience and how much goes into ensuring that the customer is always right and the customer is always happy, are you doing the same thing on the candidate experience side? So what are the touch points that you already have in your recruitment process, or maybe you will add in your recruitment process? And how can you embed positive experience to create better talent pools? So as you think of, the types of experiences that you want your candidates to have, the types of experiences that you want to be associated with your employer brand, whether you are a recruiting agency or actual employer, what are the types of positive experiences you want associated with your brand, and how will you design that into your recruitment process? And then most importantly, how will you evaluate that that is being effective and that it's being executed to your expectation? So experience is everything. And then I want to end off with this quote before we hop into our Q&A segment of this session. And it is the great growling engine of change is technology. So everything changes, and change is the one thing that they say is constant in life. But one thing that you can definitely use to, enable you, to empower you, to help you navigate that change is technology. So at this point, I am going to, turn off our recording, and